Incredible, incredible scenes that we've witnessed in Argentina. Not surprising at all. After all, they had to wait 36 years to be holding the FIFA World Cup trophy. What I'm holding right now is an actual FIFA replica. And just holding this is giving me goosebumps. Just imagine what Lionel Messi must be feeling like, because after all, it was his childhood dream to be holding the same trophy that his idol Diego Maradona once held way back in 1986. Now that the dust is settled on the FIFA World Cup final, it's been close to 40 hours. One thing has been established, that the final that we witnessed between Argentina and France is arguably the greatest final at a FIFA World Cup. But as that debate has been settled, there's another one that's raging. That is amongst football fans. And the argument is Lionel Messi now the GOAT, the greatest of all time? And I'm not just talking about this generation. I'm taking a look at the entire footballing landscape. Comparing him to Diego Maradona, comparing him to the legendary Pele. Let's first take a look at all the cold and hard numbers and see how these three legends compare against each other. All right, so the big question is Lionel Messi the greatest of all time? We're going to talk about that on this special. Joining me, two very fine footballing minds in Scott O'Donnell, a former professional player, and Joe Morrison, a name who needs no introduction here on Indian television. He's been a football commentator and a football pundit. I'm going to start with you, Scott, because I want to extend the courtesy of having you awake at 12 at night, because he's joining us from Australia. So thank you so much for doing this for us. But firstly, answer that question. I know I've spoken to you earlier, and you've often, refused to compare players of different generations, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Tell me, who's number one if you were to compare Lionel Messi, Diego Maradona, and Pele?
Yeah, mate, I can't give you that answer because as I said to you before, I'm not going to change my mind. But it's good to be back talking to you again, Nikhil. I just think they played in different eras. All three of them were great players, and I don't see a need to be able to identify one as being better than the other. What I will say is that Messi and Ronaldo, for example, have been more protected than Pele and Maradona ever were. So they got a lot more protection, Messi and Ronaldo, than the likes of Pele and Maradona. And also, I saw the stats before that you put on the screen, and I understand that Messi is scored a lot more goals, and Pele's won more World Cups. But it also depends. Football's a team game, right? So you're only as good as the players around you. So while Pele won 3 World Cups, and that's a great achievement, maybe the teams he were playing in was better than the teams that Maradona was playing in. So I just think football being a team game, I think it's really hard to. Those statistics, they're interesting, and I know from your point of view and journalist point of view that it's good because you're stimulating debate, and debate's a great thing to have. But I think statistics in a team game make it very difficult for individuals. They have to rely on the players around them, and I just think it's challenging, and that's why I'm not going to tell you who I think's the best player of all.
Okay. You haven't told me in as many words, but if I was to read between the lines, one very important thing that Scott mentions there, that Pele and Maradona weren't protected as much as Lionel Messi is. By that he means, in terms of refereeing standards, there were a lot of fouls that the referees allowed at that time when Maradona and Pele were playing. Not quite now when Lionel Messi is playing. Every little touch and you get the foul, and that's the advantage that Lionel Messi has. Okay, Scott, would you be kind enough to me, not as hard as Scott, because you're on my side of the fence, the journalistic side, the anchor side, and so not as a former player. Are you going to pick the best player ever of all time for me?
Me? Yes. It's not a debate. The debate's over. And I want Scott to come off the fence and name the player. It's Leo Messi for me. Absolutely no doubt, no debate whatsoever. And I don't care what your parameters are, but you know what? Facts and figures, like we heard just a few moments ago, they say it all. More goals, more World Cup goals. You look at championships, Diego Maradona, the European championships, doesn't compare. Pele never even moved to Europe. And Europe in the 70s was a powerhouse of clubs. So no comparison whatsoever, in my opinion. Leo Messi. Last week, Nikhil, there was a debate. Today, no debate. Can I go home now?
No, you can't, because I have a lot more questions for you. On the point that Joe was also talking about, because you mentioned all the trophies, and you said that maybe last week it was a debate, not quite, because he's another trophy he's got in his cabinet, and that's the FIFA World Cup. But the point that Scott made, that sometimes it's dictated by the teams that you're playing in and not so much because of individual brilliance. Let me take the example of Erling Haaland at the moment. He's outstanding. Maybe he goes on to become one of the greatest players ever, but he plays for Norway. So no chance there, I think, of him lifting a FIFA World Cup or a team trophy. Does that then diminish his achievement? And in that sense, if you were to rate Messi as the greatest, let it not be based on the trophies, just the kind of football, and I'm sure you saw the likes of Diego Maradona playing, just the kind of impact that he has on the pitch. On that parameter as well, are you going to put him number one?
Absolutely, still, because the two things that I look at, and we talked about the facts just a few moments ago, I also look at longevity. It's consistently performing over a period of time. Now, Erling Haaland, without doubt, one of the best strikers in the world right now, if not the best striker in the world. I'd put him alongside Mbappe. However, has he done it for a decade or more? So you can't compare. Kylian Mbappe, everyone's talking about him. Now, Kylian Mbappe, yes, he's won a World Cup. Yes, he scored a hat-trick in a final of a World Cup, which is no mean feat. But has he done it for a decade or more? And that's, and you added the other thing in there. Everyone loves the romance of Diego Maradona's story. They love that. But go and look at the pictures that we've witnessed over the last month of the fan parks in places in far corners of India, Kerala, for example, in Bangladesh. Messi shirts, Messi cutouts, huge Messi cutouts that are 10 meters high, posted around the country. He's inspired emotion as well. So just tell me what your parameters are, because Messi wins it in every single category, bar none.
Okay, Scott, I'm going to take that to you. Very interesting that he talks about longevity factor. And if you take a look at that, and I'm also a romantic. I grew up watching Diego Maradona. I think that was the reason that a lot of us from that generation started loving football. But the one thing, or the one criticism that comes his way, is that peak didn't last very long. 82, he was a youngster. 86 is when he really peaked. By 90, he was a team man. He was a captain, a leader, but not quite influential as far as his football was concerned. 94 is a World Cup that he'd like to forget. Messi, on the other hand, has been influential for a good 15 years, and maybe Pele there. In that sense, do you then put Pele and Messi then right on top because of that longevity?
Yeah, mate, I don't disagree with what Joe's talking about in terms of the longevity, and I mean, they're all quality players. One thing I will say is that, particularly with sports science and being able to play for extended periods of time. We all know the injury that Pele had when he was a younger player. They got looked after better. Having said that, Messi has had to play a lot more games than Pele and Maradona had to play in the season because of the Champions League and the World Cups and the European Championships, or not for Messi, obviously. But so there's a lot more games to be played, and I think the improvement in sports science and coaches being better coaches and knowing how to look after their players and recovery sessions, etc. I mean, I love watching all three of them play. I could watch them play every day of the week. But I take Joe's point also that Messi has inspired so many youngsters to take up the game. But that's also partly to do because everything's televised now, and so they the kids get to watch all of Messi's games anytime they want. So that's another thing. But I mean, I was really happy that Argentina won. I tipped France at the start of the tournament, but I was happy because I was happy for Argentina to win because I wanted Maradona to win a World Cup, because I think based on his what he's done over his career, and he's still doing, is that he deserved. For me, he deserved it, and I was really happy for him and the team that they actually won it.
Okay, I'm going to still continue to try. One final time, Scott, to you. If you were the manager, and you've been a manager, and if you had the choice of a peak Diego Maradona, peak Pele, peak Lionel Messi, who do you pick in your team?
I would pick Messi. I would pick Messi. If I had a choice,
There
they
we
said.
go.
So it's a different question, but it's a good question, Nico. That if I was a coach and you asked, I got a choice of these three players, I would pick Messi. I think
There we go.
Messi's he's a team player. He relies on his teammates around him, but he doesn't. For me, he doesn't take the limelight. He does it because he takes the limelight because of his skill and ability. And that's the issue I've got with, say, Ronaldo. I think Ronaldo's not a team player. If I had a choice, I would pick Messi any day of the week.
Okay, completely out of time, but Joe, I want you to have the final word. Are we doing a disservice to Ronaldo not having him in this debate?
No, not at all. Has he won the World Cup? No. My job here, Nikhil, is done. We've converted Scott O'Donnell. My job here is done. Debate over. End of. Good night.
All right, Joe Morrison, Scott O'Donnell, thank you so much for joining us and giving your perspective. And I tell you what, Scott was a player in the field. He wasn't a goalkeeper, but had he been one, he would have made a great goalkeeper, because I tried a lot of times and he blocked all the shots that I had, going at him. But Joe Morrison, Scott O'Donnell, thanks so much for taking our time and joining us on this very special On India Today. That's all the time that we have on this broadcast, but we leave you with visuals of Lionel Messi and his team reaching Argentina and the kind of reception that they got there. Bye-bye for now.